Cullen Allen, welcome to the very first video podcast episode of Brand Growth Heroes. You're so welcome. Where are you calling in from today?
I'm calling in from East Cork, which is in the south coast of Ireland. And I'm in my little home office here, which was actually the head office for an awful long time. And it was our head office right up until we sold the business in 2012, where four of us, that was all that was in the business then. Now that we're a bit bigger than that, where we met Mr. Erwin Simon from New York, who bought our business. So well, right in here.
I'm really excited to explain all of this for you to explain all of this to our listeners today. So for those of our listeners around the world, and 3/4 of them aren't Irish, can you tell us about Cully and Sully? Because one of the things I just want to jump in with is Cully and Sully really is the original Irish food challenger brand, isn't it? And you're now not only a challenger, were you a challenger brand that has scaled in Ireland, you're now a challenger brand in the UK. And that's a really exciting business story. So take us back to the beginning and tell us, how you got to where you got to today, which is, I think your soup business is 20 million in retail sales, isn't it?
It's 20 million wholesale sales, actually. So okay. Yeah, so I don't know what it is. What are you going to add another bit onto that for that? So no, it's been extraordinary. It's been more than we've ever imagined. And you're dead right. For an Irish brand, and I suppose one thing you have to really understand as an English person, particularly, but anywhere in the world, is how small Ireland is. Ireland is 4.5 million people, maybe a bit more if you include the north, whatever. And England is somewhere between 10 and 15 times that size. So a lot of Irish brands either can risk their whole business to go into the UK, and we can get back that later.
Yeah.
Or else they just can't make it happen. It's just too big a jump. But I'm in rainy Ireland, in the country of soup and tea and Tayto crisps
and biscuits.
And now Cully and Sully soup, and maybe a bit of Bali Malu country relish as well, where I'm from originally. So that's kind of where we're from. And myself and Sully is also from our local village, our local town, really, Middleton. And when we were 27, so about 2004, we got together, 2003, I suppose, to get the business together. And I suppose we had a good skill set. He was actually working for Musgraves, who owns SuperValu, and they're really one of Ireland's three main supermarkets.
Yeah.
We basically have Duns and Tesco and SuperValu, that's it in this country, and then small stores, very good small stores. And I had studied fine art, and I come from the world-renowned Bali Malu house and Bali Malu cookery school. So that's in my blood. Food flows through my blood.
Now, it's really worth just saying there, for any of our listeners around the world, if you don't know what Bali Malu house and Bali Malu cookery school is, you've got to get on the internet right now and type in
www.balimalu.com or balimalu.ie. No, balimalu.com brings you to actually all the businesses, and balimalu.ie brings you to the hotel specifically.
Okay, so, because if we're ever allowed to travel again, you want to go and stay in Bali Malu. And if you want to do how long are the cookery courses, the live-in cookery
12
courses?
12 week is the main certificate course.
12 week. Yeah. It's like people from all over the world, from Japan and China and America, come over to do this, don't they?
At every age, from the age of 16 to the age of 80.
And your whole family is really famous in terms of cooking, aren't they? I mean, let's just talk about that for about 2 minutes, because it's part of the story, really.
It's actually a gorgeous story. Fiona, thank you very much for the plug there, by the way. Just it was so blatant, I better mention it.
No, it's not a plug. I genuinely want everybody around the world to go there, because it's such a stunning, amazing part of the world. It's such a stunning, amazing setup. And it's so historic, in terms of Ireland's food culture, what you guys as a family have done.
And what's more is it's all done by in-law women. They're the ones who have made it famous, which is so fantastic. So it's not even the blood side, it's the non-blood side.
Wow.
So my grandmother, who married my grandfather, obviously, and became Myrtle Allen, started a hotel in 1964, a restaurant, with a little ad in the Cork Examiner, which was our local paper at the time. And it was like, come and dine in an Irish country house. So she'd ended up with this huge, big, beautiful mansion, which she was sharing with another family, actually. And her husband, Ivan, my grandfather, was a farmer, and he had all this amazing produce. And she's like, why can't I open up like a restaurant in Ireland selling fantastic food to like Irish food? And actually the big story there is she actually went to Paris, and I've only kind of really begun to appreciate this, and opened up La Ferme Hollandaise in Paris. I'm not sure what year it is, but I think it was mid-70s, and sold Irish food to Parisians, because she was that proud of Irish food. And she was the most extraordinary woman in the world, and she died a few years ago. But her daughter-in-law then, Dorina, went on to start the cookery school, and that's world class. And also you can do a tour around there. It's an organic farm, and it's a cookery school where they have their own cows, they make butter, they make cream, They have a whole string of cookbooks by not three generations, sorry. There is three generations. My grandmother had cookbooks, then Dorina, who ran the cookery school, and then Dorina's daughter-in-law, Rachel Allen, who you English listeners might know from Saturday Kitchen. I actually don't know her from Saturday Kitchen because I never watched Saturday Kitchen.
We do. We watch Saturday Kitchen every single Saturday in our house, and we know her very well. So Rachel Allen, I'm sure you do. And in the States, Rachel Allen and Doreen Allen would be known in the States as well, wouldn't they?
Oh, absolutely. No, all over the world. And Rory O'Connell then, who's Doreena's youngest brother of 11 or 9 children, it is also a brilliant chef and also has cookbooks out. So yeah, that's kind of us. And then we have Bali Malu Country Relish, and we have everyone in the business, everyone in the family. A lot of us are involved in food and restaurants and catering and Cully and Sully and the rest.
So that's where you came from. So you and Sully knew each other, and very quickly tell us about the start of the business.
So we got together in 2003-4, and we tried to come up with an idea. And actually the idea we came up with, ironically, was pies. And when I say pies, I don't mean pastry pies, not that English style. We're talking potato top pies, so shepherd's pie, fish pie. And then we had another few meals as well, which weren't pies actually. And we got them made. We spent a whole year researching, a really interesting thing to do actually, researching the business and the starting up. And I could talk for hours about it. But just to say that we ended up going from wanting to open a factory in our own backyard here in Bali Malu to, and selling it to the retailers, to actually getting them manufactured using retort, which is sous vide system of cooking in France, and importing them over, which was an absolute nightmare, but really good company making really good products and, really good ingredients and all the rest of it. My grandmother on her walking stick walked around their factory, and like they had Michelin star chefs in the kitchen developing the recipes and stuff like that. So they didn't understand Irish food. They tasted the shepherd's pie and their face just melted. They were like, "What is this you're giving us?" I was like, ah! Now, the fish pie was excellent from day one. So it was really funny. It was a great moment, actually, all of us sitting there. And I think Rory O'Connell was over with us that day. And they were just like, we just don't know what we're making. But that was brilliant too, because then they couldn't interfere with it. Okay. Because they just didn't know what was important. It's a bit like the subtleties of language. So they weren't
like slipping any Burgundy wine into the recipe going, the Irish will never notice, but it will taste much better.
No, they couldn't, because they just didn't understand it, which actually was a big learning curve afterwards, because if you do know a recipe, you know what you can get away with in a way. Okay. And but actually, I would have trusted them. That shows them in a bad light. Fleury Michon it was actually, and they're a brilliant company, and I'd sing their praises all day long. And I suppose so that all happened for a year or two, and that was quite successful. We got to about 1 million turnover, and I always think, for anybody listening out there, that's the magic number to get to kind of get the business to be sustainable in the retail world. Obviously, I'm talking about.
So where were you selling? Where were you selling to get to 1 million? Because I mean, that's pretty amazing. After a year, you're selling in 1 million in turnover. Wow.
We were selling in all the Irish retailers. It was like you have to. I mean, you have to get in Ireland. You have to get into every retailer, and I suppose as a brand in Ireland, you really have to get into every Irish retailer, because you just don't get the sales from. I mean, that's only 300 grand, 330 to be precise, in 3 different retailers. It's not. You know what I mean? It's very little sales really in the grand scale of things in 3 retailers.
Sure.
Superquinn, of course, the famous supermarket chain, existed.
Don't we all miss
then.
Superquinn?
Very close to your heart. Black Rock girl, is that what you are?
I'm a Black Rock girl. I miss Superquinn. I miss Superquinn.
Yeah, I miss Superquinn Black Rock particularly. I mean, we sold the same amount. And again, interesting, starting your business, we sold probably the same amount in Superquinn Black Rock, which for everyone out there, it was Ireland's sort of poshest supermarket in 2004, as in a week, probably, as we did in the rest of Ireland. It was nuts. We had a full drop. We had 7 shelves or 6 shelves, whatever it was, of just our pies. And
okay, so let's talk about that. So 2004 and Superquinn Black Rock, and other retailers in Ireland feel that it's necessary for them to give you a huge amount of space. What wasn't being catered for? What consumer need or shopper need was not being catered for that you came in and catered for?
Yeah, try not to be technical about it. We were €18.70 per kilo for our original pies, which were $5.50 for 300 grams. Now, they were fantastic, and they came. I don't have one here. Do I have anyone here? They came in a little ceramic dish.
Yeah.
So you actually got your meal in a ceramic dish. So it just felt super premium right from the very beginning.
It was the savoury goo, wasn't it?
And you Black Rock girls just were dying for something premium. and exactly. And it was kind of the only prepared meal out there, which felt Butler's Pantry, I suppose, was out there, but that was different.
I know that was for really posh people, and we wouldn't have been able to afford
that. Was even
now.
posher, was it?
Yeah. We needed supermarket posh, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And there's a difference because you go to the supermarket every week. You don't go to Butler's Pantry every week. You know, but you go there.
This is like, you know, I often talk about Goo because it was my first startup experience. But Goo brought restaurant quality desserts to the chiller, and you brought restaurant quality food to everyday life at home through the supermarket.
When would you have said Goo? Because I would have said Goo were about 2007, 6, 7 or something.
No, 2003, 4.
Okay.
In the UK.
In the UK or in Ireland?
In the UK.
Yeah, see, because they came to Ireland a few years later, and they again flew in Superquinn, but never could sell in Super Value or Tesco's, you know, the odd store.
But you did. So what happened? You're not in pies anymore, are you?
We absolutely we are, yeah. No, we do
sorry.
We still do our pies, but they're kind of slightly lost because in 2006 we brought out a range of soups.
Okay.
And there's a magic to our soups. These are our little soups here. This is our tomato soup, and this is our chicken. So these are our two best sellers.
Now, for anyone listening on iTunes or Spotify, there's a video that's going up on YouTube of this interview. Cully, will you describe the pack to us? Because you were the first. Were you the first in Ireland and the UK to have this pack, and even France, or what? Talk to us about the pack.
We were the first people probably in the world to use an ice cream tub to put our soup into.
Okay, so it basically looks like an oval bowl, doesn't it?
It's an ice cream tub. You know,
it is an ice cream tub.
Yeah, or maybe you might even get sort of like, I don't like this word margarine, but anyway, you might even get margarine in that sort of a shaped tub. I mean, margarine is just against my butter comes in doesn't come in tubs basically is what I'm trying to say. So this was, and actually it's given us a lot of grief and hassle because of it's 400 grams of soup we serve.
Now that's also a magic number. Let's talk about that because we often talk about value propositions with scaling businesses and startups and getting this right. How do the physical properties, the choices you make about the physical properties of your product, how do they reflect how you're going to answer the consumer need? So talk to us about 400 grams versus what was out there already.
So we felt that most people who had 600 grams of soup ate it, left a bit at the bottom, then came back 2 days later and threw it down the sink and never ate it. I think the world had changed in fairness. Do you know what I mean? I think probably when those 600 grams were originally launched, people did. And also the tub looks quite big actually. So it does look generous. It's a very generous looking 400 grams and it's much more premium. But actually we were the same price as a 600 gram soup. We are the same price as a 600 gram soup. Obviously soup varies, but in the general. And, but people didn't notice, nor did they care. They just wanted soup for themselves and they wanted it to be delicious. So I think there was a lot of stuff that happened that was kind of slightly magic. I mean, our tub, I think, is really beautiful. I don't know. I mean, I'm not the one to say that, but it's fun. I mean, I suppose our mantra is taste, trust, and fun.
Okay.
And like the little sketches on the back, again, I'm showing them here, but you'll have to go and see the YouTube video. I drew them literally on the way to the shine on it there, so you can't see it. But I drew them on the way to the designer when the two of us were like in the car and he suddenly was driving and I was like, we need a cartoon because I don't want to put my face in it. But it's all sort of cartoon stuff. I mean, very, I suppose, at the time, Ben and Jerry's, innocent.
Yeah.
We're doing the same sort of stuff. In terms of trust, our recipes are on our website. They're not like, you can go onto our website, you can download our tomato soup recipe and you can cook it. It'll come out a little bit different because you'll be using a different stock and whatever, but it's there. Like people who are eating soup that they're buying in a supermarket and people who are cooking soup, it's two different markets. Like, you know what I mean? One's feeding a family, one's whatever. The other's heading to the office. The other's, it's the meal for the one person who's going out to hockey that night or soccer or rugby or whatever it is. Two different occasions. So the 400 gram really worked for us. And actually the other little bit of magic that happened for us on launch was our main competitor in Ireland put up their price by about 20 cents, literally the week that we launched. They didn't know we were launching. And so they went to slightly more expensive than us. So we ended up being slightly cheaper for what I would say was definitely a much better product. You can back me up in that.
Totally.
I mean, it was a very different offering. It's a restaurant style velouté soup. It's made with like real butter, fresh vegetables, fresh herbs.
Yeah.
They're all very smooth. The original ones were totally smooth. We've added a slightly less smooth ones sort of over time. But they were like, that was because our cooker in our original, we outsourced our manufacturing, was for making, it was a mayonnaise blender. So it was for making mayonnaise. So that just blended the soup really, really fine, which we really liked, being kind of a sort of hotel-y kind of brought up and all the rest of it. And we didn't realize either that the margins that other people were making off soup were crazy. So we were delighted, because you don't make the same margins off pies. You can't. It's just, they'd end up costing 8, 9, 10 quid. So we were really happy, and we just sort of slightly, fell upon ourselves. We ended up with this gorgeous soup that was really premium. People were loving it. And it was at a ridiculously affordable price, at €2.49 at the time, euros. So it's about 2 quid sterling.
And was this around the same time that Covent Garden would have been growing in Covent Garden soup would have been growing in the UK, or was that? Were they already?
I'd say that was when New Covent Garden was in its absolute heyday. I remember going to the UK and going to see Covent Garden in Sainsbury's, where they had like 27 lines and they had like 2 drops, and you were just and they had that was my favorite New Covent Garden packaging, actually, is when they had the kind of just the whisper of a herb or a vegetable on the white pack. But they did. I think they did exist a little bit in Dublin, but they were only kind of in the odd shop. They never actually came to Ireland, which is really. But
you're right. Yeah. I mean, I think they were in Superquinn Blackrock, and I always remember when I was in university, they'd be in the fridge, and you'd have a big bowl of it, but there'd always be some left, And then it wasn't enough. What was left was not enough for one person, but it wasn't enough for 2. There wasn't enough in the pack for 2 people, and I can remember thinking, why does the person inventing this think that there's enough in this for 2 people? Because 2 people need more at a lunchtime than, 300 grams each. You need, 350, 400 grams.
Yeah. And I would say, actually, the people need to be slightly more than satisfied to be really happy.
Okay.
So when they buy our soup and they eat it, there's just 400 grams is a huge portion, actually. Like if you went to a restaurant, you'd never get 400 grams of soup. Now, if you went to a restaurant, you'd always have soup either as a really snacky or else as a starter. So that's the other reason that you wouldn't, unless they were specifically doing big bowls of soup for lunch. And so 400 is a lot to eat. So afterwards, you're definitely full. And if you're not full, you don't want any more soup. Do you know what I mean? You want bread, or you want starch, or you want something different. So it's. But the other thing actually is we're in I know it's you've done things on packaging. We're in a PP container, which is very recyclable, but New Covent Garden, and our main competitor in Ireland, was in Tetra Pak, which I don't think they're recyclable in Ireland. I don't know where they are recyclable. It's always a bit of a funny one. But if they're in 300 or 400 gram cartons, they look tiny and to the eye, and we do eat with our eyes. So, I suppose to people out there wondering, when you do have something on a supermarket shelf, it needs to look like it's value. And the soup really was magic. It looked like value. It tasted really good. It fills you up. I mean, we reckon, myself and Sully often discuss this, if, there's a scale of getting a product perfect, and there's not, our pies are kind of like 60, 70%, and just say 50% is when they repurchase. They're good. They're selling away. People love them, actually. They've got a long shelf life, which has benefits and negatives. Obviously, benefit is you can buy it at the beginning of the week for whenever you really need something. But so as opposed to the more English system where Marks and Spencer's started, where really you buy it to consume that night or maybe the following night. Yeah. Whereas I think our soups are kind of like 90%, and the sales show that. Do you know what I mean? The sales, the graph just went like that. But
I think, do you know what I think here? Like, we're spending an awful lot of time talking about stuff that is, the rational product benefits, the shelf life, the size of the pack. And I think this comes back to understanding your shopper needs and your consumer needs, right? The fact that, you can put your bowl in the microwave and eat out of it if you're in the office or you're at your desk and no one else is around. And loads of people do that, I think. But just for any of those listeners out there who are in startup brands or scaling brands, whenever I'm mentoring companies, I'm always surprised at just how little people think this stuff through. And really, you have to get this stuff right. This is the stuff that means that the consumer experience, from purchasing the product all the way through to, whether they can recycle the pack and how they feel in their tummy when they finished it in terms of portion size or flavours. This all matters.
People would complain, and we watch it really closely, that they get indigestion from our mushroom soup particularly. Not everyone, but a few people. And that was like the amount of onion, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And as a brand, we sell soup now. That's what we do. We do lots of other stuff as well, but our bread and butter is our soup. And there's great stories. We stopped making our carrot soup on a Monday because carrots that are sliced on Friday or Saturday and made into soup on Monday the soup comes out like watery and bitty. Like, you need to be making your soup immediately after you chop your carrots. And we have 2 places now that manufacture for us. One does it in-house, one does it out of house. But I mean, it's a 4-hour window to go from being chopped to getting to the kitchen.
Yeah.
So it's, but like that sort of stuff matters. Mushrooms are the opposite. Mushrooms, it's all about getting them in there. For us, that second flush. So the first flush is when they're tight little button.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third flush is when they're, you think breakfast, you get the big, huge, and that's gone too black. So, we're right on that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? To making sure that
detail.
It's detail and getting, so it looks beautiful as well.
I had someone on recently, excuse me, and they wanted me to taste their product, and I did, and I really liked one variety of what I was tasting, and I wasn't so keen on the other. It was a savoury snack, and I said to them, the savoury snack has a particular savoury vegetable in it. Excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat.
Yeah,
and I said, did you choose that savoury vegetable, the sourcing of that savoury vegetable? And they said, no, that's just what our co-manufacturer served up to us as an option. And I said, okay, so on your pack, let's pretend it's crisps, yeah? And let's pretend it's olives. Yeah, it's an olive crisp. Yeah. Olives come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes and flavours and flavour profiles. Yeah. It would be really good if you were on top of what you want your co-manufacturer to deliver to you. So they come into the room knowing, that you're saying to them, right, the olive has to be a black olive from Puglia and it needs to be this level of salt, because you know what your consumer wants. You're not just going to say, oh, they've delivered me a black olive tasting thing, that must be what black olives taste like. It's that level of detail.
Well, listen to this. We were making pea soup and we were making them with bird's eye peas. The little bags that you buy in the supermarket, bird's eye, which we thought were the best peas. And then we went to make the soup and they use regular peas. And we discovered afterwards that basically bird's eye peas are AAA grade. Right. And again, just for the English listeners out there, you guys have like pea and ham soup and it's made with split peas. It's actually it's not sweet green peas like we like here in Ireland. Yeah. So it's a very different product. So if you go, you can get our pea soup in Tesco's in the UK, but it's made with fresh AAA grade peas. Okay. And to get them at a commercial level was a nightmare because
nobody wanted them.
For the first couple of they did want them, but they were for retail. They were so expensive.
No, that's what I meant. I meant no manufacturers were asking suppliers for AAA grade peas to make soup with.
And it seems like that's 90% of your ingredients, or at least 90% of your flavour in a pea and mint soup. Like, obviously you've got water and stock and the rest of it, but in terms of volume, but it's the pea is the most important thing. And we find our pea soup and other really hard to make, and it varies massively. And if there's a stop on the line when we're making it, if it's held at all for any amount of time, you lose colour, it goes starchy. It's so we're, and again, we're watching that all the time.
God, that's amazing, the level of detail.
And we grade stuff between 1 and 5, and 1 is a pass and 5 is a pass. But 1 is like a really disappointing pass, if you like. But still, it's good enough to get across the line. I mean, obviously, sometimes you do stuff. If you forgot the salt, we definitely wouldn't even make 1. And then we have 5, which is just sometimes you make the soup and everyone just goes, flipping hell, that's delicious. Like, it's just really, really good. Yeah. And I think it's good for the manufacturers to know that, it's not a bottom grade, it's a middle grade that we're aiming for all the time. And it fluctuates. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And you're hoping, you'll get 3, obviously hoping you get 5 all the time, but you don't. You know what I mean? You get your 3 90% of the time. And then it just allows you kind of go, oh, something not right about this one, but it's fine. Send it out to market, but why aren't we totally happy with it? Do you know what I mean? And carrots, again, they come from Ireland and they're best for the season. But it's not like potatoes, you can't refrigerate them. So potatoes will be kept in huge, big, massive, sort of acre-sized warehouses for the whole year. And new season and new season potatoes, like they're a whole different kettle of fish to your main crop. But carrots, on a bad year, so when the weather's really bad in Europe, they might come from Israel for a short while. Right. So we're getting fresh carrots from Israel. And like, we're going to go, why doesn't the soup taste good? And they're the only carrots we can get. We've got to produce our carrot soup. So we know the soup isn't going to taste as good. And like, we were tasting them, not blind, but like, we didn't know which one was, there was 5 different carrots. We were tasting the carrots going like, these ones taste like fish. Like, you know what I mean? So
maybe the fertilizer on the field.
I don't know, or maybe the soil, I don't know, the terroir.
Yes.
I mean, like, you know, you taste wine and you go like,
I bet you seaweed fertilizer on the that's been used.
Whatever it is, but like, you know, it was like in the same way as you taste wine, we were tasting fish. Like, you know, obviously they taste like carrots first and foremost. They taste tasteless. But so, and you know, then you have big carrots which don't have such flavour versus small little ones.
So listen, if there's one takeout for all of this for our listeners here is you're absolutely passionate about vegetables and about ingredients and about knowing every single tiny little variation in your production, right? But I want to move you on. If that's okay, right?
I was going to just say, as a small business, I think you have to be that. If you're not that, you're not going anywhere. Do you know what I mean? Because you're not into volume. You know what I mean? That's by nature of
I hope that everybody listening to this who is a startup or scaling business, if they're not thinking like this already, they're going to go home or they're going to be at home and go, crap. How do I get into this frame of mind? How do I get into this level of detail? Because it's exactly what you need. It's the control of it all. Don't give it to anyone else to control, like your co-manufacturer. You control it. You tell them what you want and make sure they deliver it to you, right? Right. I want to move you on. So talk me through the different phases. You got to 1 million. When did you get to 5, 10? When did you make the decision to sell the business? How did that go? Talk me through the steps, the big steps in big leaps.
So we're still there anyway. So just for those people who heard about the selling of it, we're still there and we're still running it. So it's obviously been a good story.
Exactly.
We had a lot of people sort of ringing us and talking to us. And we launched the soup in 2006. We also launched quite a few other things which didn't work. Just good to know for people to know that like not everything worked. We tried to do pub food and we tried to do all sorts of things. And
then you just decided to focus on the knitting, right?
Well, no, we're always trying. You have to try new stuff. You've got to keep trying new stuff. But some of it works and some of it doesn't. And so I know you've got to keep trying new stuff and you've got to try new markets and you've got to try, you know, you can't just become lazy. Do you know what I mean? So, so that doesn't work either. But where was my story now?
Sorry.
Oh yeah. So 2004, we launched the soups. And it was around, I remember walking down Grafton Street, Main Street in Dublin with Sul, kind of going around 2008 going, you know, I wonder how many people know us. And it was like, you know, the brand. And now the brand is, I think, probably in every fridge in Ireland at some stage during the year. But it was around 2008, 2009 that we went from being kind of, it felt like nobody knew us. You know, that overnight success story? Yeah. Everyone seemed to know us. Actually, my sister, and we're obviously, we're one of these people who doesn't really go to supermarkets. Just like pardon me.
Because you've just got the butler bringing you the food in. I'm only joking you.
I need more water. No, getting all excited now, you see. My sister, who, like myself, hardly went to a supermarket in her life, said, oh yeah, Cullen, I started buying your soups. And I was thinking, well, if one of my family are going to the supermarket and buying our soups, we've made it. That was like, wow. Yeah. So, but it was definitely around 2000. Obviously, it was growing, but soup sales, like our soup sales were more than doubling every year. So 2007, 2008, 2009. I couldn't tell you in any specific year what our sales were, but like they went from sort of say, it was the first half year or whatever, because September to December, you know, great sales. The second year was probably 1.5 million. And then they went to sort of 4 million. And then they went to sort of like 6 or 7 million. And then they went to, you know what I mean? And sort of up like that. So very, very fast. And actually, I think just listening to one of your other podcasts, someone was mentioning about how sometimes you get traction. And I think I thought that was a really good word to use actually, because when you're doing marketing, when you're selling a product, whatever, you're looking for traction. And if you see traction somewhere, invest in it. Do you know what I mean? But we wouldn't invest in anything until we see traction. You know what I mean? Like, and it's interesting. We've brought out a really interesting range of broths at the moment. So we've got a beef broth, we've got a chicken broth, we've got a miso soup, which is vegan, and we've got a vegetarian vegetable soup, which is vegan, and they're a slightly different style. They're sort of chunky, but they're just not getting traction. Do you know what I mean? People, it's all talk, but people aren't buying them in. And it's really interesting. Our top selling soups are our tomato and our chicken, which are, you know, I mean, they're not soup. People talk souping high in fat. It drives me demented. Like soup is less high fat than full fat milk.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? I mean, we're talking, sorry, high fat soup. So if you take our tomato soup, I think it's 4% or something like that, or it's less, like 3.9. And full fat milk is 4.2, 4 or something. So it's less. Like, you know, so you get more calories probably having a cup of milk for your lunch than you do having a high fat soup. You know
it's interesting, though. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's just that the Generation Z or the people who are, you know, driving that whole broth and, you know, vegan? I'm not saying that only Generation Z are vegan, but do you think just that they're not your buyers, that it's the Irish mammies and the young professionals who are your buyers?
We don't know the answer to that. And they are bought a certain amount, but I don't know. Are the people who are sort of into that, are they kind of a lot of talk and not much action? I mean, I don't know. It's, you hear a lot about vegan, but I mean, loads about vegan. But
maybe in Ireland it hasn't happened much outside Dublin yet. In Cork, I don't know, in the major cities, whereas the UK is big enough.
I don't know that's even that big in England. Do you know what I mean?
I know it is.
I mean, well, have you got the numbers on it?
Yeah. So let me think if I can remember. So, well, 50% of the UK are claiming to be flexitarian now, right? So to try and reducitarian.
That's all talk.
No, that's econometrically.
No, but it's still all talk.
Oh, you think that people are claiming it?
Well, no, not so much that, but they are maybe when they go to a restaurant and they're maybe whatever. But like, we were one of the Irish retailers recently, and I think they told us the turnover of their vegan section. Now, got to remember, our soup is vegetarian, right? So it's all, obviously the chicken one isn't, but so vegan. So you know, it's lots of things are vegan by way of being vegan, not by way of anything else. Do you know what I mean? Like they're just vegan because they don't have animal products in them. So, but that whole vegan kind of is in the vegan section where people are doing. Yeah. It was sort of tens of thousands of turnover. I mean, do you know what I mean? It wasn't even hundreds of thousands. It might have been a few 100,000 in the whole of the country. Okay. And I'd love to know what that is in the vegan section in the UK. Tesco UK. Yeah. In terms of
my understanding is it's driving serious growth. That's my understanding. But I'll go away and find out and email you, okay?
Yeah.
So go back to the stages. Go back to the stages. So all of a sudden you'd gained real traction. You're at 10, 12 million. When did you decide, how many people were in the business at this stage?
So basically until about 2008, we were 2, plus a person helping us with the accounts. But like, we're talking, we had a local girl from the local village. We had actually 3 or 4 people, you know, a mum who had just had small kids, and it was sort of like, you know, 4 hours, 2 days a week kind of job. And then about 2008, we employed 2 people who are still with us today, and big hats off to Rena and Anne, who basically run our business. They're amazing. And Anne runs the accounts, and Rena, for an unintensive business purposes,
runs everything else.
Business. Yeah, exactly.
She's amazing.
And Sully are able to sort of think beyond the horizon. Like she's the ultimate eye dotter and T crosser, and by God, myself and Sully put her to her wits' end sometimes.
I can imagine.
And you know, really serious follow through and all the rrest of it, and an absolutely brilliant person.
So she's like the perfect number 2 for entrepreneurs, really.
She's as an entrepreneur, you need a boss. That's basically what you need. Okay. Don't mind this PA and all this and nonsense. You don't. You need a boss.
That's amazing advice.
In fact, Erwin, who bought our business, was an entrepreneur, and he's been kicked out of Hain Celestial, who are the business that bought us, because he needed a boss. I'd say is probably the reality of it. You need someone to say, no, you can't do that.
Okay.
And I mean, Doreen is another example. Who runs the cookery school. She's mad as a brush, pure entrepreneur, started the cookery school. But you need someone to say no to her every now and again. And it's kind of hard. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even trying to organise a meeting can be hard.
So tell us about the decision to sell to Hain Celestial then. How did you get to the point where you decided you wanted to sell the business?
So to get to that, straight to that. So we always said that we wouldn't talk to anybody until 2010. And in 2010, actually, we got an approach from an Irish business to buy our business. And anyway, that fell through. And as that fell through, New Covent Garden, would you believe, in the UK, was just bought by an American business. And we heard about this. So we went, 1 second, maybe they're interested in us. And at that stage, our business was at crossroads, and it was packaged and ready to sell in a way. And so we knew, well, it's a long story, but basically Rena, who'd worked in a previous business in Swissco in Ireland making airplane food, had worked for the people who were running New Covent Garden. So we knew them. So we contacted them and we said, listen, just on the off chance that they're interested, might let them know that we're packaged. You've got 3 months if you're interested, because otherwise we need to start investing in it. We really at that stage needed to invest in our own business, in our own packaging, in our own soup line, stuff like that, if we were going to continue like that. And to our complete amazement, they said, no, we're really interested. And Erwin came over here to this little office, which is in a total mess on that side. So I'm not going to point it out to you, but it's literally one table, which is about 2 meters long and about 1.5 meters wide. And it's a 3x4 room, like it's tiny. And Erwin sat here and paid us an undisclosed price. You can Google how much he paid for it. And we said, that's fantastic. And we've worked with them, found them brilliant to work with. On the whole, and are still there since 2012. So the whole business was gone in 3 months, if you like, from that perspective.
That's unheard of, isn't it? It's unheard of that a sale goes that smoothly, that well, without sending you all to an early grave, but also unheard of that you can stay in that business and work with the investor for as long as you have. I mean, presumably you and Sully don't have to hang around. You can go and start up something else, but yet you've decided to stay on and run the business. And, every time I ring you, you're at work. So it's not like a fake thing. So
it's a really handy thing that when we're at work, when we're sitting outside, like just about to go windsurfing, I'm at work.
So why does that work? Why does it work? And why do you think sometimes for people who stay in a business after they sell it, why does it not work?
I'd say this. I mean, I think there's loads of reasons why it doesn't work. I think we're very, very lucky for a few reasons. Number one, we're a little country on the outskirts of Europe, which is quite a small market. So we're small enough that we're kind of not a major concern. Second of all, we've constantly made money since we and hit our budget really since day dot. So there's never been severe pressure. I think the autonomy though is really the big one for us. And we've got a great team now. There's 10 of us now in the office, or 11 of us. We still outsource our production. Most of it in Ireland. We do all our own product launches. We do all our own marketing. We do all our own, it's all in-house.
Wow.
With the UK then, so then since, one of the other reasons that we sold was because we couldn't get into the UK market. And right back at the very beginning of this conversation, I talked about the size of England compared with Ireland. And, so Tesco UK is 3 times the size of the entire Irish market. So for us to go in and launch in a market that's 3 times bigger than everything that we own. First of all, you have to get a buyer who's willing to back you.
Yeah.
So, it's very hard for a buyer in the UK to risk everything they have to invest in a small Irish brand who are probably going to give you issues with delivery. They're going to give you issues with supply. They're just going to, and they're too far away to kind of like drag in. Do you know what I mean? So and there was an Irish buyer went in. So God bless her. Thank you very much, Paula. She listed us. And it's been a great success story since then. But she also had the collateral that the same company that are behind NCG and actually Yorkshire Provender were behind us, making sure that we were, that they'd have someone to talk to, and they had confidence in us. Do you know what I mean? And that's a massive thing. So
Hain Celestial, listeners out there would know Hain Celestial because they also invested in or own which other brands?
They have Ella's baby food. They have Tilda Rice. They actually disposed of that. They're disposed. Yeah. They got rid of it anyway.
Sold.
Just like last year. Sold. Last year. They have, what are their major, I'm just trying to think what.
New Covent Garden.
The sort of, yeah, and the other one is Linda McCartney. Okay.
Brilliant.
Vegan food as well. So they've loads of brands in England. And then they've obviously a whole pile of brands, Earth's Best and Terra Chips. And Celestial Teas is one actually that we'd really know, people would kind of know in the States.
So they'd be well known and trusted as a serious backer for you guys. So what year did you go into the UK then? Because for our Irish listeners, who have a scaling brand in Ireland, obviously the UK is their next market, right? Now, Brexit aside for 1 minute, because obviously that's a difficult one to know, and everyone's, thanks to Board Bia, very well prepared in terms of their Brexit strategy, because Ireland is really lucky for all our global listeners out there to have the most wonderful food board who does just fabulous work with Irish industry to prepare them for everything they do.
Absolutely.
So, what does it take to get into the UK and make a go of the UK? What stage are you at now in the UK?
So we were really lucky. We pretty much went in with full listings of our tomato soup. So I suppose as a product like ours, we have like 10 or 12 products. So you don't get everything listed everywhere to start with. And, that's the next sort of the second stage of growth is getting more listings. So I think we listed first, I think it was 2014, actually, I'm not quite sure, with 4 products, but pretty much full listings with that's every supermarket in Tesco, with our chicken and veg and our tomato, and then lesser amount of stores, but still a significant amount of stores with our mushroom, and we had chowder and we had pea. I can't remember exactly which ones. I think it was actually pea and mushroom to start with, and then the chowder came in afterwards. And the chowder sells really well over there. And then I think then we were with them. We kind of were exclusive with them, and totally delighted to be exclusive with them for a few years because, it was big enough for us to deal with. We didn't know, and something like that, you just don't know how, the reality is that it doesn't just explode overnight, thank God. But you just don't know. So, we're minded that business. We marketed it. We've actually, if you Google, if anyone wants a bit of a laugh, Google maybe Cully and Sully marketing London. I don't know where you'd find it, or go to our website maybe. But we did all these sort of like crazy campaigns where people had to sing into the microphone and sort of tell them why they love their Cully and Sully soup so much. And we've these people dressed up as chickens and singing songs, and people outside their gate, like giving people tastings of Cully and Sully soup, all this sort of absolutely mad stuff. So we had great fun with that. And that was kind of got it over the line and got the rate of sale up where it stayed on shelf, because that's your first battle, actually. Yeah. And it's back to your million turnover. You have to get enough sales that it's justifying its place on the shelf. And then from there, we've actually then recently enough in the last 2 years, we've gone into, maybe 3 years ago, we went into Co-op, who we have a brilliant relationship with, actually, a really good buyer there, Kelly, who just really liked her. She came over here. We run a competition with the schools of GIY, which is Go It Yourself. They're a little bit in England, but we do a lot of work with schools, a lot of work with food education, and all that sort of stuff. And GIY, we did this campaign for a few years, and we had this competition with schools where they had to make a soup, and then they had to do a presentation, and they had to do the marketing, and they had to make a soup and present it and everything. And Kelly actually came over and judged it with us in Waterford. So that was, fair juice to her. It was brilliant. And so we had a real buyer from a UK supermarket, and we had great fun with them.
I'm sure the Irish buyers were delighted that you chose a UK buyer to judge the Waterford competition.
They don't know. Don't tell them.
Don't tell them. Okay.
No, she actually just came over. She was meeting us the day before.
Okay.
And we were saying, listen, that's totally cool. Come over. But listen, we do have to be in Waterford the next day. You can come down if you want. She goes, yeah, I'd love to. And we said, come do judge so. So it was actually happened more by accident than anything else.
So how many stores are you in the UK now?
Oh, Janie Mac, I suppose, there's 3,000 or more Tesco stores. We're in Co-op are much smaller stores, so there's probably a good few hundred of them. We just went into Asda.
Wow.
So, with at least one SKU, if you like, we must be in well over 5,000 stores.
It's amazing. And do you have a UK office, or?
Well, we operate through the Hain business.
Okay. So do you have to actually what do you have to do, you guys, on a weekly basis or a monthly basis in terms of the UK?
We do the marketing, right, and we do the manufacturing.
Okay, so and they do the supply chain over there and the customer service.
They do all the supply, but even if they didn't do the supply chain, they even outsource. That's it goes through. It
was just interesting for the Irish listeners, because I'm thinking if they're thinking, well, what does it take for us to launch into the UK and manage that business? Do I need a person to do it, or can it be my Irish team doing it as well as?
We use PRM in the UK. In the north.
Yeah.
As our distributor. So they bring it over to a distribution warehouse there in the UK. And then from there, it goes out to wherever it needs to go, to the central distribution centres for the different retailers. Okay. But yeah, you have to have, different shelf life products work differently. So if it's ambient, it's a very different story to if it's a 2-day shelf life. And then we're in the middle, we're a 3-week shelf life kind of job. So it all, it's different system, but yeah, you have to have someone there who consolidates and distributes for you. Yeah. That's the reality of it.
So when we were preparing this, on the way in the car, because we're both so organised, or I'm speaking for myself anyway, you made a really good point. You said, you don't hear so much about why food businesses don't make it. Why do you think you did make it versus all of those reasons that food companies don't make it?
I think the first thing that I see with food businesses is not controlling their costs, actually. I think that's just really important. You know what I mean? Ireland is tiny, so it's different. I think it's a very different model in the UK than there is in Ireland. That's the first thing. I think, in the UK, because if you just get into Tesco's with your one little product, you know what I mean, in the UK, and you get, so let's say you get 50% listings. So you're in 50% of Tesco stores in the UK. At that point, you're in a market that's, what did I say? It's 3 times the size of so 1.5 times bigger than the entire Irish market. So, at that point from get-go, you probably need an investor. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Or you need access to cash. In Ireland, it's not like that. You need as few people as possible, and you need to do an awful lot of running. You need to meet the buyers. You need to know the guys in the shops. Like we had lists of all the different, because we used to do tastings. We did tastings every single Thursday, Friday, Saturday in stores for 3 years. I mean, I never want to do another tasting again in my life.
So when you say we, you mean you and Cully, you and Sully.
Yeah.
You knew all the aisle managers and the store managers by name.
All by name. We knew the buyer by name. I mean, knowing your buyer at head office. I mean, we were kind of quite an interesting business model in the sense that, we subcontracted the manufacturing, but we did the deal with the supermarket. Yeah. And that's really, and actually, really quickly on that, it was a supermarket buyer who really said to us, you should bring out a soup. So that's how valuable that relationship is. And you get information from, just notice we've got the cat in here. I didn't even notice the cat was here. And a pussycat. So that's a really important relationship. And you learn so much talking to the buyers. And then obviously knowing the people on the ground, because they're the ones who, and we'd, you could use the word influence or whatever, but we'd, back in the day, particularly, we'd have, and still today, actually, we'd incentivize buyers to, the people on the aisles who are stacking the shelves, we'd run little competitions for them and stuff like that. And kind of, let them know, all reasons to let them know that Cully and Sully exists and that it's Irish and that it tastes delicious. Try and get them to taste it, offer them one for their lunch. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, all the things you were allowed to do back in the day.
Tasting. Yeah, exactly.
Do you know, this is another, I bang on about this in the podcast all the time and in workshops I'm giving, which is about understanding your sales on a local level and doing that by going into store and knowing that the aisle manager or the store manager, depending on the size of the store. And people say, oh, but I couldn't do that because I wouldn't want to disturb them and who am I? And I said, they're really open to talking to you as long as you get them at the right time, the right moment and in the right way. And in order to do that, you have to probably know, do they stack the shelves on a Thursday? They have a changeover on a Thursday. They're going to be really busy. Don't talk to them then, or get them at 11. And, you've just got to ask questions.
There's never anybody important in the supermarket on a Tuesday. It's the day that the important people take off. Do you know what I mean? They're always there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You have to, again, it's back to level of detail. So you need to know your product inside out, but you also need to know your customers' workings inside out. And we started this by saying you need to know your consumer inside out. And I don't think necessarily all startups realise to what degree you have to be an expert on the detail in all of these different domains.
Yeah, and actually, you just touched on something you meant, if you could say we've got two customers, the supermarket and the people, but actually the people we are our consumers and the supermarkets are our customers. And actually was really interesting. Another real, step up for us is because we started in 2004, we were kind of born as a sort of a modern business, if you like, you know what I mean? And as social media kicked in, it just totally played in our hands. Because again, a bit like what the model of, I suppose, Innocent or Ben and Jerry's, just to use them again, they marketed at their consumer. They didn't market at their customer. So you can incentivize, as I said, your customer, but really we were talking to our consumers. And, big businesses didn't do that. It was like, and even, other businesses, they just your manufacturer was in the habit of making something that they could make. Yeah. And then giving it to a distributor who'd take the cash and try and flog it. Do you know what I mean? But not really knowing a huge amount about it.
Alongside their 200 other things on their catalogue.
Yeah. Whereas we went to the consumers and said, what do you want? And they went, oh, we want to. And then back to that word, what was I saying earlier on, is traction. If something sticks, traction. If suddenly something's working, you're going to go, right, let's invest in that. So then you find someone who can make it the way that they want it. Mm-hmm. So we don't care who manufactures it. and you can get it, and then you're bringing to your consumers something that's really, it's valid and that they want, and hopefully at a price point that works.
So back to why you think that you managed to avoid the pitfalls that other businesses, food businesses that don't make it, haven't avoided. What else is there?
So the big one is obviously keeping your costs. And I think traction is the other one. And I think, if it's not working, if after a year, you're still only doing 100,000 euros of sales, really you've got to wonder if there's a business model there at all. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
You've got to back it a certain amount. Do you know what I mean? You've got to believe in it at the beginning. If you don't believe in it at the beginning, you're into hope. So you've got to believe in it, and you've got to give it an opportunity. And that's costly, because supermarkets will charge you wastage and stuff like that. So there's a kind of a 4, 8, 12 week kind of periods at the very beginning of a new product launch where you're really watching it. Mm-hmm. And if you're getting a bit of traction, then you can work and you can invest in it a bit more and a bit more and a bit more. But you can't, it's just like, we often looked at taking an investment. We had no investment in our business. And every time someone said, listen, can we invest in your business? You know what I mean? We were kind of going, well, 1 second, if we take €1 million from you, what are we going to spend it on?
Brilliant.
And we could never answer that question.
That's a brilliant question.
We could never answer it. Like, you know what I mean? We're not going to do a marketing campaign because we didn't really believe that our product was at a level where it, put it this way. I mean, I always say to Rena and the guys, like, that is an extraordinary piece of real estate. So
you're holding up your packaging now for anyone who's listening.
Yeah, so sorry. Yes, for anyone who's listening. So we're doing a thing with Focus Ireland, who are an Irish charity for the homelessness.
Yeah.
And a few of them ended up in the UK, so they're probably looking at them with two heads going, who's Focus Ireland? And Focus Ireland, of course, we're delighted to get a bit of so we've actually taken the lid and we've cut out a little thing to put a coin into, so you can take the lid up, eat your soup, and then cut the coin out, and then it's a money box.
Like your Trocra box growing up, the Trocra box.
Exactly. But like, that's on supermarket shelves in Ireland. It's only on our chicken and veg because to do with logistics, that if we had the same lid for different pots, they'd get confused, and then you'd end up with a tomato soup barcode on a chicken and veg thing and stuff like that. So we learned our mistakes. We learned that the hard way once upon a time. But if you buy a chicken and veg soup in Ireland, it'll have a little Trocra box style cut out in it, and then we've said that we'll match it. So if you raise 100 quid in your staff room or whatever, we have to work out exactly how we're going to do it, because with COVID it's a bit more tricky. But you put that, just say, on a GoFundMe page, and then we'll see that it's from X and X school in Dublin, and we'll then match it with another 100 quid. And so that's massive real estate for. So when you talk about marketing, you're already on a shelf.
Yeah. James Avertink used to always say that to me. He'd always say to me, we spend more money. This is like back in 2006 when I joined from Nestle. He'd say to me, Fee, we spend extra money on our packaging. It's more expensive than it should be, right? But that's because that's my TV ad.
Yeah.
My TV ad is having that beautiful black shiny pack with extra, glisten and glow on the shelf, because I can't afford TV.
Yeah, someone said to us, like, I love the Cully and Sully pies. You can have them in your fridge and you feel proud of them. Do you know what I mean? Like, that was, and like, that was particularly in the day when you kind of had a matte sort of finish and you couldn't see them. So just for listeners out there, you couldn't see our pies. They were in a closed box, and they still are in a closed box. So you can't see the product, and you can't really see our soup either, actually. You can see it at the bottom of the pack. But so like, you need to pick them up. And again, we're at the premium end of the market, like, you know what I mean? But soup at £2.49, or in the UK £1, somewhere between £1.70 to £2, depending on where you buy it. It's not a premium price, really. Actually, do you know what I mean? No. Compare that to the price of a sandwich. And how much healthier is it for your lunch?
Completely. But your brand is everyday special, isn't it? That's where it is positioned.
Whatever you want it to be. No, please.
But it is, it's not Avonmore, or it's not private label soup. It's somebody who wants to eat something every day that's just that bit nicer, or some people will only eat it twice a week or.
No, and I think the other part of it that's really important is, like, myself and Sully are there. It's called Cully and Sully soup. You know what I mean? That's important. Maybe that's what's kept us in the job. Maybe it's nothing to do with us. And then I think what's really important is the quality ingredients, the trust of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And we always say, like, you know what I mean? Eating is about having a bit of fun. I mean, there's nothing more crack than having a dinner party and having your friends over and drinking too much wine.
Exactly.
And
Listen,
we do way too much of that.
yeah, don't we all, especially, well, I was about to say especially during lockdown, but it's just minus the friends.
Yeah. Oh, yes. We had our whole office in for a Zoom chat where we had a full meal. We had beef Wellington. We had pasta to start with. Everyone in the office, so it was 10 houses, all had to make a little tart. So we got actually chef in Bali Malu, JR, he sent us the custard, he sent us the apples, and he sent us the brine baked pastry. So we had to make that. And then we got another guy to supply us with wine. I mean, we're still doing dinner parties big time. We were hammered by the end of the night.
I'd say you were. Look, I think we've learned a huge amount. I'm really hoping that everybody out there has learned a huge amount from this. I'm certainly incredibly impressed by the obsession and passion you have about the detail of what goes into your product and how it tastes. I find that really fascinating, you know, about the carrots being cut on a Friday. It doesn't work in the soup on the Monday. And I didn't realise why I didn't like UK pea soup in the supermarket. I didn't realise. Now I know.
Flavor. It's not an Irish. Yeah. And then actually the English gave out that our soup was too sweet.
Okay.
So
because they're not expecting it. It's about expectations, isn't it?
Totally about expectations.
Look, thank you so much, Cully, for all of that. This is a hugely rich episode. I think we could have spent an entire, 40 minutes talking about your purpose, the brand, and how much good work you do. And we could have spent another 40 minutes talking about, sustainability and recycling and the difficulty of that sometimes in terms of trying to find the balance between packaging that works for a product and packaging that exists on the market. But we've learned a huge amount. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Would be great to catch up again in the future, particularly when you've continued to scale in the UK, and maybe doing an episode focused on just particularly on scaling in the UK.
Yeah. No, totally. And maybe if customers are something like, because this will be on YouTube, I presume if there's comments or whatever, I'll try and get up there sometime during the week or whatever and see if there's any questions. I'll try and answer them as best I can or something like that.
That would be amazing. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Well done, Fiona. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.